What is a woman? That is the question of the day, according to Matt Walsh. We're going to delve into this and find out, what is a woman? Doesn't seem like that difficult a question to be honest.
Right.
I mean, if you're an adult and you're human and you're female, I'd say that's what you are. That's a woman. That's what I say. We're going to find out what answers Matt Walsh gets on his tour.
What you're asking is insane.
I'm not asking.
It's a suicide mission.
Then prepare for death.
Just ask like professors and people that should know what a woman is, if they can tell you what a woman is. So we're going to find out. Let's do this.
Being a dad is one of the great privileges of my life. Give my son a BB gun, and that's just about all the emotional support he needs. My daughter, on the other hand, I've heard people say that there are no differences between male and female. Those people are idiots. I'm a husband. I'm a father of 4. I host a talk show. I give speeches. I write books. I like to make sense of things. But making sense of females is a whole other matter. Even astrophysicist Stephen Hawking, who could come up with a theory on black holes, was completely dumbfounded by women.
Women. They are a complete mystery.
And now our culture is telling us that the differences between girls and boys don't matter. That if you identify as something, then you are that thing. How do we help our kids make sense of this when they're bombarded with conflicting messages about gender and identity? Forget trying to figure out women. The real question is, what is a woman?
In the state of Tennessee, I'm a licensed marital and family therapist, which basically means I've been trained up to think about like systems, family systems, how we were raised up, how that shapes who we are today.
So on your website, if you'll bear with me,
Sure.
Quoting, you say, I use a combination of approaches in my therapeutic work, including anti-oppression, feminist, and narrative frameworks. I rely deeply on systems theory and understanding that individuals are products of and in dialogue with our surroundings, including our families, broader culture, workplaces, nature, and political climates. What does that mean?
Yeah, so thinking about the modalities that I use, I'm definitely informed by like feminist family therapy, and the idea is that we live in gendered worlds where there are certain imperatives that are placed on us about who we are and what we do based on how we've been gendered. From the minute I was assigned female, I was told, okay, these are the kind of clothing that you're gonna wear, these are the kind of, the type of play that you're gonna engage in as a child, the path that maybe your life will take because of social expectations.
What do you mean by assigned female? Who assigns female?
Yeah, so most times people, when they're born, they're assigned a gender
By the
doctors. Yeah.
Like, what do they base that assignment on?
So basically it's based on genitalia. So people looking at genitalia and deciding, okay, this is a girl or a boy. And we know now that that sex and gender are so much more than just this binary. Some women have penises, right? Some men have vaginas. That's not how gender works.
How do we know that that's not true? Where did we learn that from?
Yeah, well, I learned that from hearing from transgender people.
I'm not here to talk about my transition.
Who they are, their gender expression. That a trans woman is a woman.
With the fluidity of these things, how do I know if I'm a woman? You know,
That's a great question.
Wow.
I like scented candles. And
Yeah.
I've loved that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do I know?
Yeah, Matt, that question right there, like that question is like when it's asked with a lot of curiosity, right? That's the beginning of a lot of people's like gender identity development journeys.
Whoa, what the fuck you just say?
If my mom who gave birth to me is a woman, and my wife is a woman, though I haven't asked her, maybe I should. But if they're all women, and also the boy who sits down with you and says, I think I'm a girl, actually is one, then what is a woman?
Yeah. Great question. I'm not a woman, so I can't really answer that.
What is a woman? I don't want to assume.
Rule number one, number two, number three,
Yeah.
number four.
Yeah, for women.
So how would you define it, like in the simplest terms?
That is hard.
Yeah, it is. It is a stumper.
A woman is someone that likes to be pretty and think of themselves as a delicate creature.
I'm pretty indelicate.
Okay.
I could be a woman too.
Yes, you could.
Defining womanhood
My God.
is
What
just a
the
project of someone who
fuck?
identifies as a woman.
Yeah, but what, like,
Just
what
a-
do they identify? You see what I'm saying? What do they identify as? They identify as a woman, but what is that?
I honestly don't
What
know.
is that?
Ah,
It's a simple question. No one can seem to answer the question now.
That last one was
Over 2,000
Yes.
surgeries and counting, Dr. Marcy Bowers is the nation's preeminent sex change surgeon. Surely someone who does sex change surgeries can answer what a woman is. Or you're a world-renowned gynecologist and surgeon. You're also a transgender woman. Can you tell me a little bit about...
Well, I mean, I identify as a woman, but
You're a woman, right?
But
I'm a woman with, I mean, that's my life, day to day,
it's a dude.
but I have a transgender history.
This is all constructed from the penis?
Yes, that's right. The surgeries are quite refined in the sense that they really, not only do they look like female anatomy, but they also function that way. For the most part. I mean, certainly it's a bit of a Faustian bargain. You know, it's not perfect. There are legitimate detransitioners, and there are people who truly feel that in their journey, they may have made a mistake. Now, fortunately,
I'm gonna turn my dick inside out.
How do you justify this?
People in the trans.
I mean, I don't
people
get it. How do you
community,
justify this?
these are
You with a
people
straight
who
face.
Are physically. How long have you been running the shop here?
25 years.
Wow. Now, you had an incident here a little while ago that went really viral online. Lots of reaction in the public.
Aberdeen Councilwoman Tiesa Meskis confronted owner Don Suker about a
Tiesa.
sign he posted in his store.
One day I just put
For
the
the
sign
dick,
up
you're not a
over
chick.
here, and he came around the corner, and I thought, okay, I recognize him. I says, oh, I recognize you. You're our new city councilman. He says, no, I'm your new city councilwoman. So it was kind of on from there. I don't care if you think you're a sheepdog and you come into my store. It don't matter to me. Just don't come in and try to shove that shit down my throat.
If it makes someone feel better, what about their feelings?
I don't give a shit about that.
What about in the Star Wars universe?
Oh, I like that.
Pansexual, do you think? Transgender?
20 years ago, I played Jar Jar Binks in Star Wars.
Why would I even care?
If it's his truth.
Well, it ain't true.
You're not a scientist. You're not a gender studies major. Or are you?
No.
Okay. How do you know that you're a man?
How do I know that I'm? I guess because I got a dick.
Well, I guess Don isn't overthinking it.
Damn. I like Don.
Yeah.
Doctor.
My name is Michelle Forcier, and I have a medical degree from University of Connecticut, residency, University of Utah Pediatrics, and I've worked for a number of different Planned Parenthoods for 20 years.
She's a
I
pediatrician.
do advanced contraception and abortion, as well as gender hormones, and sort of looking at the whole sort of schema of gender, sex, and reproductive justice. There's research and data that show that babies and infants understand differences in gender. Some children figure out their gender really early, and the reason why we say, oh, that's interesting or important is because they're figuring out their gender identity is not necessarily congruent with their sex assigned at birth.
When the doctor sees the penis and says, this is a male, has the sex of male, that's an arbitrary distinction.
Telling that family, based on that little penis, that your child is absolutely 100% male identified.
Oh my God.
No matter what
It's
else
a big
occurs in your
clitoris,
life.
right?
Yeah.
That's not correct. Where have you been in
This
terms
is a
of your
straight
gender
face.
and your gender identity?
How he
Right
keeps
now.
a straight face, I don't
And
understand.
more excitingly, where would you like to
Right?
be
Like
in
no
the
little,
future?
Have you ever met a 4-year-old
even a sigh or.
who believes in Santa Claus? So this is someone who believes that a fat man is traveling through the sky on a flying reindeer at lightning speed, coming down his chimney with presents.
Yeah.
Would you say that this is someone who maybe has a tenuous grasp on reality?
They have an appropriate 4-year-old handle on the reality
Agreed.
that's very real for them.
Agreed.
I like him.
Santa Claus is real for them, but
Yeah.
Santa Claus is not actually real.
Yeah, well, but Santa Claus does deliver their Christmas presents.
Well, yeah, but he's not real, though.
To that child, they are.
What's true to you
Right.
can be false to me. So like, it's like.
What if I said that it's true? My truth is that you don't exist. Does that mean you no longer exist?
I mean, if that's your truth, sure. I don't, because it's
But
like.
you do.
Wow.
Well, I mean, if you're saying that I do, then I do.
Well, but even if I said that you don't, you still do, because we're.
I mean, are we?
Oh my
I
God.
think so. I mean, I thought.
That's what you think.
All right, she's trying to
Well,
put that
I should
mind
have
foot
known it'd be
back.
hard to
wasn't she?
define reality in Hollywood.
There's a lot of crawfishing so far.
I should probably look to
Yeah,
a place where
that's
truth
what that
is the
was.
foremost pursuit. The American University.
Not just reduce gender to what psychologists might call individual
He's like a
differences,
gay
but
Kiefer
rather
Sutherland.
thinking about gender. That's not women and
Yeah.
man, but gender as a social form, something that kind of infuses itself into virtually all aspects of social life.
Be one of us.
So are gender and sex two different things? Or-
Well, I think that they both are and they aren't. I'm comfortable saying that gender and sex are two different constructs, but they're deeply intertwined with each other.
We're talking about gender and sex, and there's a lot of controversies there. If we're talking about a trans woman has all of the male physical characteristics, so would that not be a male
Man.
then? Couldn't we plainly say
It's a fucking man.
Right.
this person is a male?
Well,
Yeah.
I guess it's like,
Yeah.
why
A
are you
male,
asking the
right.
question? I think I want to understand sort of why.
Why are
that's
you
so
asking the
important.
questions?
So if
'Cause I
someone
wanna know the
tells you-
answer.
To sort of understand reality, you know?
Well, I mean, I think when someone tells you who they are, you should believe them. So if a person says that they're a woman or they're a man, then that's them telling you their gender is. I'm not so sure what social
Oh my goodness.
interactions would have to do with
That dude's a
maleness
professor.
or femaleness that would
Well,
be.
I'm not even talking
That's
about
what's
social context.
wrong.
I'm just trying to start by getting to the truth, you know?
They can't never answer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really uncomfortable with that language of like getting to the truth.
You can't handle the truth.
Again, in social life,
Why is that uncomfortable?
because that it sounds actually deeply transphobic to me. And if you keep probing, we're gonna stop the interview.
What the hell is that shit?
If I probe about what the truth is?
You keep invoking the word truth, which is condescending and rude. I'm saying to you,
How is the word truth condescending and rude?
why don't you tell me what your truth is? And you're walking on 30 seconds more of thin ice before I get up.
Guess what, motherfucker?
What my truth is? Well, I don't think I really have a truth. I think that there's just the truth, like the reality. And so we should begin by trying to figure out what the reality is.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
And why are you concerned with when someone else tells you that they're a man, or even if they use the word male, why are you concerned with not believing them?
Like the dumbest motherfucker that ever lived.
Well, you keep bringing it back to, how do you respond in a social situation? But,
That's what I do. I'm a social scientist.
Well, right, but we're in a university. This is a place of understanding truth, isn't it? Or
Absolutely. We
But the
pursue
truth-
truth, and I'm a social scientist, and that's what I do.
But you just said the truth is transphobic.
That you would say, if you're saying the truth is that I get to say, you're not a man, show me your genitalia, that's transphobic.
No, I don't want to see anybody's genitalia. I just mean someone can make a statement about themselves that could be untrue. Like, for example, if I were to say that I'm a black man, would you accept that, or would you
Be skeptical.
Are you black? Are you African American? Are you biracial?
I don't think so.
You don't look that, and I don't think it doesn't sound like that's a genuine statement of who you are.
Oh yeah.
That's my point. I could make a statement about who I am that's incorrect.
Of course, I think
Right.
it's well established that human beings can lie, yes.
Or not even lie. I mean, I could just be mistaken.
Yeah.
What is a woman?
Why do you ask that question?
I just really like to know.
What do you think the answer to that question is?
Well, I'm asking. That's why I came to a college professor who's this is what you do.
What other kinds of answers have you gotten?
A lot of like this, where you're not answering, and I've got.
I think it's interesting that you say that some of the people you've interviewed have been reluctant to answer it, and I think that has a lot to do with the questions that preceded it, and the way that you've conducted yourself in the interview.
How have I conducted myself?
How do you think you've conducted yourself?
You just really don't want to answer the questions, do you?
I came in today very willing and enthusiastic about answering questions about women's and gender sexuality studies, which is
So you
what
wanted
I do.
You wanted to answer questions about women's studies, and so shouldn't the first answer you should be able to provide is what exactly is a woman?
For me, it's actually a really simple answer, and that's a person who identifies as a woman.
But what are they identifying as?
As a woman.
But what is that? Do you know what a circular definition is?
I do.
Yes, Father. The Almighty says, don't change the subject, just answer the fucking question.
It's sort of like what you're doing right now, where a woman is a woman.
Mm-hmm. Well, because you're seeking what we would call in my field of work an essentialist definition of gender. I think it sounds like you would like me to give you a set of biological or cultural characteristics that are associated with one gender or the other.
I'm not seeking any type of definition. I'm just seeking a definition.
Yeah, and I gave you one.
Well, now I can say I've been to college. Glad I didn't pay for it. Is there anyone willing to give me a straight answer?
The first race that I competed against a transgender athlete was during my freshman year.
They whooped your ass.
And once the gun went off,
around
the
it.
two transgender
Smoked
athletes
around.
took off flying
Yeah.
and left all of us girls in the dust.
You think?
Throughout all 4 years of high school, I was forced to compete against biological males. I only competed against them in the sprinting events, but I raced against these athletes over a dozen times throughout the years, and every single time I lost.
Did they inch you out of medals that you would have won otherwise, or trophies you would have
They
won?
beat me out by 20 meters.
Look at it! It's time! I'm the best! I'm the strongest!
Out of medals. And qualifying spots, I missed out on qualifying for New England's. I had to go in the long jump and the 4x200 meter relay, so I was forced on the sidelines in my own event.
I'd like to thank my opponent who came
You
within 20
chose
meters.
the wrong school.
So I missed out
Right.
on so much throughout my high school
That's
career.
getting all of
Did they
them. though.
win
High school.
all the events or almost all the
Jesus.
events?
Between the two of them, they won every single event they competed in.
How does that feel?
Who cares how much more talented he may be than you?
It is so frustrating and heartbreaking because we elite female athletes train so hard to shave just fractions of a second off of our time. And going into races knowing that we will never be able to win.
Feels like all that work gone to waste.
It does. After so many losses, it just gets to the point of, why am I even doing this? Why am I keep training so hard and sacrificing so much just to place third and beyond?
But they don't see what they're doing to real women.
Two male track runners,
They were
transition,
trans girls.
right, and who decided that they were going to race against the girls. And those individuals look at their times against the men, against the boys.
Oh,
They
where
were
does he
kind of
find these
pack.
people?
And then they're racing the girls, and they're, first and second place. Is that indicative of some
Look at
kind
you.
of unfair advantage that those individuals might have against the girls?
No, it's not indicative of an unfair advantage. And I think part of the proof of this is that more transgender girls are playing out in high school and still playing sports.
Oh my goodness.
And they're not winning. The Connecticut case is the exception. It got a lot of attention because those two trans girls performed well. But there are many, many more trans girls competing in sports and they don't excel.
Bullshit.
Because at the end of the day, whether or not you win a game is not is about
lets him go on about it some
and
shit.
most of us aren't going to win, and that goes for transgender athletes.
He lets them talk.
Let's go, girls.
The norm is that transgender youth don't win that much in sports games.
Alana McLaughlin was very appreciative for Pro
I watched
take
that
this
fight.
I don't know how appreciative it is now.
That chick beat his ass for 3 rounds, and he still won.
Very much the exception when a transgender young person does win.
And the tap.
And it's because there's not really an advantage to being trans. Only
There are some slight differences, but does it
Oh
translate
my
to
goodness.
a competitive advantage? I think you'd be very hard pressed to prove that.
If there was a big advantage to being transgender in sports, then we would see transgender women totally dominate.
And over the last half of the pool, nobody
Oh my
Like a woman.
Oh,
Transgender
my
swimmer
goodness.
Leah Thomas breaking barriers and records.
I was actually a really slow swimmer at first and stayed a really slow swimmer through the first couple years of my collegiate career. Then I turned 23 and all of a sudden I'm the best swimmer in the women's division. And I can't track exactly what changed. I guess I'm just a late bloomer.
Hello, I'm Congressman Mark Takano. Trans Month of Visibility is a time to recognize the strength, diversity, and resiliency of the transgender community. Together, we can make our country and our world a more accepting place by speaking out against transphobia at the source and supporting the trans community by getting the Equality Act signed into law.
Hey, number one, Your Honor. Just look at him.
Congressman, thank you for being here. Thanks for joining us. You are the first member of Congress who's a member of the LGBT community and also a person of Asian descent. You're also a big proponent of the Equality Act.
Yes.
What is the Equality Act? If you were to just summarize it very briefly, I know it does a lot.
The most simplest way to talk about the Equality Act is that it simply amends the 1964 Civil Rights Act to include sexual orientation and gender identity. So public accommodations is one area.
What's a way that someone who's LGBT could be discriminated in public accommodations currently?
Currently, public accommodations is the whole area of, hotels and motels and
bathrooms and sports teams. Is that?
I say bathrooms, sports teams, athletic events.
Let's get into more specific policy issues. There are some women who say, and I've talked to a few who say this. They say, hey, I'd like some privacy in the bathroom. I'd prefer not to encounter naked penises, frankly. They say even that the penis is a telltale sign that someone is a male. I mean, there are people who've kind of really bought into the rumor that penises. What? How do we account for that? How do you respond to that?
Give me one reason why I should believe anything you say.
Well,
he's a politician. He won't talk.
Well, we're waiting.
Well, what I would say is that most transgender people that I know, and it's a very, I think, distinct minority of people. It is a very, I think, we're talking not about a lot of people.
Yeah.
I think a person who wants to use a woman's bathroom, who identifies as transgender, really does think of themselves as a female. So how we go about trying to, respect their basic right to live.
That is a fantastic answer to a question nobody asked.
Bathrooms are, where you want to take this conversation instead of the basic right to just life.
Oh, isn't he just talking
I'm kind of mystified that
politician.
Not focusing on it first, that we're going straight to
Gotta talk in circles.
bathrooms.
Right.
So, you know what? I think this interview is over.
That is one big pile of shit.
That's it.
I think
Yeah,
the
I
interview's
just
over.
think
I
that
just have one last
nigga was
question.
crawfish hard.
No, the interview's over.
We
Please
want
turn
to
off
know
the cameras.
what is a woman.
Please turn off the cameras.
Excuse me. So we're gonna end the interview. If you guys could please pack up and return the office exactly.
I just wanted to know.
Okay.
I came all this way to know what.
Thank you.
They're fair. I just wanted to know what is a woman.
And you're not gonna find out.
Right. Kick ass.
Democrat politician. Not unusual.
I raised two daughters. They're two of the most well-adjusted adults. They grew up around naked people, and there's been studies that have shown that children raised around non-sexual nudity actually have fewer hang-ups when they're adults.
They're showing his dick root. I don't want to see his dick root.
During this conversation. Can anyone be any gender they want to be? Can a man
They
be
need to
woman?
show the whole thing and see how ridiculous he is. I mean, I bust it out. Fuck.
I'm trying
Crazy
to live the life I
motherfucker.
want to. And
I don't want to see that crazy motherfucker.
Well, I mean, you know, you're sitting there talking to him.
what they want to do.
I mean,
Why are you asking a gay man as to what it means to be a
What?
woman? You should be asking women what it means to be a woman, especially trans women, what it means to be women.
I'm asking all kinds of people. Can anyone have an opinion about it?
Only people who are women. Gay men don't know nothing about what it means to be a woman.
So you smart, huh? Have you told gay men here in San Francisco that they're not allowed to talk about this?
No. But it's not like I come around and say what a gay man is allowed to be.
So you're saying if you're not a woman, then you shouldn't have an opinion.
Where does a guy get a right to say what a woman is? Women only know what women are.
So
Are you a
Even women
cat?
don't.
No.
Can you tell me what a cat is?
This is actually a genuine mistake. I am sorry I even came up there.
That's your brain trying to comprehend its own stupidity.
You want to tell us what a woman is?
Oh God. That's the belly of the beast there.
You think? Wow.
What is a woman? Can you tell me that? Oh, you're at the Women's March. You must have some idea. So, I see girls, vagina. Does that mean that they're the only people who can get pregnant?
If men could get pregnant too, I think they'd want the right to choose.
But men can get pregnant?
We're saying someone who was born as a woman but identifies as a man.
that a man?
Real man.
It's a real man.
Yeah.
So men can get pregnant.
Yes, if we're saying that, yeah.
They have the parts to do so.
Is it just women that give birth, or is it?
Or I guess, yeah.
So men can give birth
Anyone
too.
with a vagina.
Well, that could be a man or a woman.
Well, I mean, I think that's the whole point, right? That it's fluid.
He's got fluid.
The way that we define these things changes a lot.
What are you doing here?
I'm asking these questions.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out what a woman is. That's why I'm here. And this is the Women's March. I figured this is a good place to find out. I've come all this way to ask that question. Can anyone tell me what a woman is?
You are not here for women. We ask you to leave.
What is that?
What is that?
How am I harassing? I'm asking a question.
Wow, his presence, huh?
What is a woman?
He got a megaphone.
This man.
How about you tell me what a woman is and I'll put a mask on? Sir, tell me what a woman is and I'll put a mask on. Please, if one person could tell me what a woman is.
Is that his bodyguard or something?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Do you guys know what a woman is by any chance? No idea. I've been all over America. I still can't find an answer. Maybe I'm looking too close to home.
You know, I think of...
Yeah.
Oh.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
That's the blood.
Mm.
This is the best raw kidney I've had. What if a man decides that he wants to do roles of a woman?
Where's his drink at, man? I know he's
in Maasai community, it will not exist at all.
Doesn't exist? What if a man decides that his gender identity is woman?
You talking crazy shit now.
A woman has its own duty, and a man has its own duty, and a lady cannot do the duty of a man, and a man cannot do a duty of a woman.
Can a man become a woman?
Their faces in the back.
No.
No?
No.
What about a transgender? Transgender?
No.
No?
It will look like if you want to become a lady but you're a man, you have something wrong in your mind. Something wrong in your family, something wrong in you.
What about if someone was non-binary?
Come again?
Non-binary? You know, like non... Like someone is...
You're not a woman, you're not a man.
Yeah, someone is neither. There's something else. Is that...
I don't know what this dude is.
He's saying we have never seen things like those. For a man, he has a penis. For a woman, he has a vagina. So we know this is a lady, this is a man.
What if it's a woman with a... What if it's a woman with a penis?
He blown him out.
Is that... People are laughing. Is that a dumb question?
Yeah.
They're just laughing because they have never heard something like that. This is their first time to hear.
Never heard it before.
A woman have a penis, and she is a woman.
In my country, I can't go a day without hearing it. We hear it every day. So in my country, sometimes you'll hear people say, a man will say that I'm a woman trapped in a man's body. And so they say that I have a woman trapped inside me.
They want to know
check the
that a
flies
woman
out.
has the breast. Secondly, she has a vagina.
Vagina.
And the question is, does this man deliver?
Does he deliver babies? No, not as far as I know.
The question is, let's say if you want to sleep a woman, definitely you'll do sex.
Sex with a woman, yeah.
And you the vagina, is it? But for the man, where do you You ask that question.
I don't know all the logistics of it. Based on what I'm saying, would you ever want to move to America?
They say no, never.
That man would rather live with the flies.
What is a woman if you had to give it a definition?
She's saying a woman delivered,
Yeah.
a man cannot.
So it sounds like you don't spend a lot of time thinking about gender. You just kind of live your lives. You don't think much about it.
He said no, because we believe that's a God plan.
God's plan?
He's saying that I'm shocked on what you are telling me.
He's shocked.
Yeah.
The Maasai people don't think much about gender, but they have a firm sense of their identity. It's clear that gender ideology is a uniquely Western phenomenon. So where did all this come from?
Kinsey. Kinsey was a social reformer. He wanted to rid society of Judeo-Christian values when it came to sexuality. And he worked very hard to do that, and I would say he succeeded.
Kinsey would be very happy with our culture today. His idea was that children are sexual from birth, that we're all inherently sexual creatures from cradle to grave. He believed that true happiness is found in a life of perverse sexual experimentation, no matter the age.
What came out is that his research was fraudulent.
Kinsey based his fraudulent conclusions on data he collected from convicted sex offenders and child molesters. His research was conducted in prisons, not everyday America. He also performed horrific sexual experiments on children, some under the age of 1. His most influential book, Sexual Behavior in the Human Male, contains an infamous chart called Table 34, which documents the orgasms of very young kids, including babies as young as 5 months old. But instead of suffering the consequences for his heinous actions, he was and still is celebrated by academia and Hollywood. His ideas form the foundation for sexual education in public schools today. How do we get from this to you can choose your own gender?
Okay, well now we have another very important character, and his name was John Money.
John Money was a psychologist and professor at Johns Hopkins University. Gender ideology was his brainchild. In fact, he coined the terms gender identity and gender roles. And according to Money, babies are gender neutral at birth, and ultimately environment determines whether a person is a man or a woman.
Money was telling the world about his theory that a boy could be raised as a girl and do just fine, and vice versa.
And so Money tried out his theory on 2 young twin boys, the Reimer twins.
When the twins were 8 months old and they went to be circumcised, the first twin, whose name was Bruce, something went wrong with the machinery and his penis was burnt off. They stopped and didn't do a second circumcision on the other twin, as you might imagine. And the parents, of course, didn't know what to do. How are they going to raise this child?
John Money convinced Bruce's parents to transition him into a girl. Money also conducted sexually abusive experiments on the twins throughout their childhood, including forcing them to simulate sex acts on each other.
He reported up to the age of 10 that this was a complete success. Well, wasn't true.
The results were a disaster. Bruce could never fully accept his female identity. Eventually, his parents told him the truth, and he chose to transition back to a boy, taking the name David. As an adult, David spoke out about the abuse and the damage done to him by John Money.
The girls would do their things with their Barbies and things like that, and that wouldn't interest me. And things such as trucks and building forts and getting to the odd fist fight and climbing trees, that's the kind of stuff that I like, but it was unacceptable, so I'd never...
As a girl?
As a girl, I had no place to fit in.
The trauma that he and his brother and his entire family went through
that dude needs his ass
left deep scars. His brother died of an overdose when he was 38, and then David committed suicide.
There was never a retraction or an apology from John Money. Instead, his ideas were adopted by mainstream psychology, and they form the basis of gender ideology today. Why don't more people know about John Money and Alfred Kinsey?
Evidently, there are forces that don't want this information out.
Chemical castration?
Yes. We're giving it to pedophiles, aren't we? We're giving it to people that are dying, and we're giving it to kids, telling them that they were born in the wrong body and it's completely safe.
One of the drugs used is Lupron, right? Which has actually been used to chemically castrate sex offenders?
You know what? I'm not sure that we should continue with this interview because it seems like it's going in a particular direction.
Well, you're a medical professional.
I am a medical professional.
So you don't want to talk about the drugs that you give to kids, or?
Again, I'm a physician and I use medication. You're choosing exploitive words. Drugs I give to kids.
I'm choosing a
chemical
word that was in a dictionary.
That's not a correct term for puberty blocking.
I could look it up on my phone, but I'm pretty sure if I looked it up.
This woman believes
look it up on your phone.
It says medical definition,
chickens
the administration of a drug to bring about a marked reduction in the body's production of androgens and especially testosterone.
And I'm saying, as a pediatrician who takes care of hundreds of these kids, when you use that terminology, you are being malignant and harmful.
I mean, there are some who would say that giving chemical castration drugs to kids is malignant and harmful.
Talking to you, bitch! It's about the context of caring for a child and seeing the the suffering that kids can have that have not been in affirmative home situations.
What do you say to the claim that, well, we have to do this for these kids because if we don't, they'll kill themselves. They'll resort to drugs and self-harm.
A lot of them were hurting themselves. A lot of them were suicidal before they even discovered gender. That is never part of the discussion. And they say, what would you rather have? A living daughter or a dead son? If this is what the professionals are saying, it's terrible emotional blackmail.
Fair enough.
There's
Jordan.
no such thing as a gender-affirming therapist. That's a contradiction in terms.
Why?
Because you don't affirm if you're a therapist. It's not your business to affirm. You come to see me because there's something wrong. Maybe you come to see me because a destructive element of you is wreaking havoc in your life. I'm on the side of the part of you that wants to aim up, man. That's what I'm on the side of. Okay, now I don't know what that means in your case, but we're gonna talk about it. Am I gonna affirm what you think? No, it's not up to me to affirm it. You don't get a casual pat on the back from a therapist for your pre-existing axiomatic conclusions. That's not therapy. That's a rubber stamp.
Is anybody at any point explaining to these kids the real long-term consequences of hormones and puberty blockers?
I don't think they're explaining it to the kids, so that has frightened me, that it's become, that we're even talking to the kids about it at 10. We're presenting it in schools.
So this generation, they're the lab rats.
Biological sex, binary. It's been binary for like 100 million years, longer than that. Temperament is not binary, temperament or personality.
So that's gender. Temperament is gender?
Well, gender is not a good word because it's vague and it isn't measurable.
So do we need it? Why can't we just say temperament? What do we even need the word gender for?
Well, I don't need it.
Yeah.
But what I would say is that people who talk about the diversity in gender are actually talking about diversity in personality and temperament, but they don't know it. You can have a masculine temperament if you're a woman. Maybe 1 in 10 women have the average temperament of a man. And you can have feminine men temperamentally. And it's not that uncommon because the differences between men and women temperamentally aren't that great. There are masculine girls. There are feminine boys. What are we gonna do about that? Carve them up?
What's up with that? What's up with that?
You as someone who started your
I love
professional
Jordan.
life
All right.
in transgender care.
Yeah.
Now you're sitting here talking to me. And I'm a dangerous man, I've been told.
Mm-hmm.
Are you worried about reprisals? Are you worried about how this is gonna play among your professional peers?
I am worried that I can't have conversations with any other peers. I don't know any other peer that will speak to me around these things that question it. I just don't think developmentally this is helpful to our children.
You step wrong as a therapist, you say the wrong thing once and like your bloody career is over. And now it's the same with physicians. How's that gonna work? You gonna go have an honest conversation with your physician when he's terrified out of his mind that he'll say something politically incorrect during the diagnostic processes? Hey man, you're sick with whatever you wanna be. See you later. You want a prescription for something?
Right.
I'm a physician and I use medication.
Certainly, it's a bit of a Faustian bargain.
Puberty blockers, which are completely reversible.
You keep invoking the word truth, which is condescending and rude.
Some women have penises, right? Some men have vaginas.
Does a chicken cry?
Does a chicken cry?
I'm not a woman, so I can't really answer that.
Wow.
That's because I got a dick.
I decided last week to fulfill my lifelong dream of being a Loudoun County resident. You know, I've always felt like I lived in Tennessee. I felt sort of like a Virginian trapped in a Tennessean's body. I identify as sort of state fluid, I guess.
This is Matt Walsh tweeted, how do you do, fellow Virginians?
State fluid.
Now I just got to explain to my wife and kids that we're going to be staying in someone's basement.
Just so he could speak at the school board
They
meeting.
tried to muzzle me by not allowing me to speak. And when that didn't work, they tried to muzzle me with a mask. I would thank you all for allowing me to speak to you tonight, but you tried not to allow it, yet here I am. Now, you only give us 60 seconds, so let me get to the point. You are all child abusers. You prey upon impressionable children and indoctrinate them into your insane ideological cult, a cult which holds many fanatical views, but none so deranged as the idea that boys are girls and girls are boys. By imposing this vile nonsense on students to the point even of forcing young girls to share locker rooms with boys, you deprive these kids of safety and privacy and something more fundamental too, which is truth. If education is not grounded in truth, then it is worthless. Worse, it is poison. You are poison. You are predators. I can see why you try to stop us from speaking. You know that your ideas are indefensible. You silence the opposing side because you have no argument. You can only hide under your beds like pathetic little gutless cowards hoping we shut up and go away, but we won't. I promise you that.
Yes, sir.
Dramatization. I can just only imagine. Oh, this is where he wrote his Johnny the Walrus.
Johnny's a boy with a big imagination. One day he's a dog, the next day a crustacean. Johnny's mom loves her son's make-believe time. You're Johnny the Walrus till you change your mind.
Matt Walsh is out with a new children's book. The book is called Johnny the Walrus. What is this about?
It sold out on Amazon in a few hours.
So I have embraced my true calling as a children's author, hence the cardigan. The book is about a little boy who's very imaginative and playful, and like I have 4 kids, and they all have an imagination.
Yeah.
And he likes to pretend to be different things, and one day he pretends to be a walrus. And unfortunately, his mother is very progressive and thus confused, and so she's convinced by the internet and by society that if your child is identifying as something, then he really is that thing. And so she tries to raise her child as a walrus, as a sort of trans walrus, respecting his self-identity. One morning, he came downstairs barking and clapping, wood spoons for tusks and sock fins flapping. He had spoons in his mouth. He was pretending to be a walrus. I'm Johnny the Walrus, he said with a roar.
Johnny the
Help.
Walrus. Nedo Carol Uweru.
This is a hot topic.
Yes.
That's a good thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's good for us to have these conversations so people open their minds and relearn and
Oof.
unlearn to what we've been taught.
So I want this to be a safe
Addison.
place to talk about and learn.
More
As
like
you can see,
asinine.
there's an ongoing evolution of language and how people can identify.
My next guest, author and conservative host of Daily Wire's The Matt Walsh Show, talking about his recently published children's book that has since been removed online by a popular large retail chain. Now, Matt says gender is not a social construct, but rooted firmly in biology. True?
True. As human beings, we have a sex, male or female. But as a biological scientific fact. Now, gender is a linguistic term. Words have gender. People don't. You can have whatever self-perception you want, but you can't expect me to take part in that self-perception or to take part in this kind of charade, this theatrical production. You don't get your own pronouns, just like you don't get your own prepositions or your own adjectives. You know, it's like if I were to tell you, my adjectives are handsome and brilliant. And no matter, whenever you're talking about me, you have to describe me as handsome and brilliant because that's how I identify.
So you think it's a delusion?
Well, this is one of the problems with this left-wing gender ideology is that no one who espouses it can even tell you what these words mean. It's like, what is a woman?
Well-
Can you tell me what a woman is?
No, I can't. Womanhood is something that is an umbrella term. It includes people
That
who...
describes what?
People who identify as a woman.
What is that?
Was to each their own. Each woman, each man, each person is going to have a different relation with their own gender identity and define it differently.
So
you
that's
want to
the
reduce
problem.
women, you want to reduce men down to maybe just their genetics, our genitals,
No.
our chromosomes, right? That's what you're saying.
You want to do is
that's what we are at the end of the
you
day.
want to do is appropriate women. You want to appropriate womanhood.
Okay.
And turn it into basically a costume that could be worn.
Joining us on stage is Dr. Susie Denbo, Associate Professor at Kent State University. Dr. Denbo, how do you feel those who oppose using pronouns are taking the wrong approach in this conversation?
There's the extreme approach that you are admittedly taking. And then there's also just ordinary people that might not be comfortable with the language change.
She began by saying that my view is extreme. Okay, so the view that every single person on Earth has held up until 15 seconds ago is extreme. They are conflating gender and sex because on one hand they say, well, you got your biological sex, but then your gender is whatever social construct. But then they turn around and say that trans women are women. So a man who identifies with the gender, the social construct of womanhood, actually is a woman.
Part of me wants to ask why you care so much, because it's really not that big of a deal.
I'll answer that. I care about the truth. So basic truth matters. I want to live in a society where people care about the truth. I care about children, and these insane ideas about gender are being foisted on kids, and that bothers me quite a bit. I care about the women who are having their opportunities stolen from them. I care quite a bit, yeah.
I wanted us to have a safe place to be able to talk about this, and it seems like we should just keep the dialogue going and hopefully find some middle ground.
There's no middle ground. Reality is reality.
Why?
I feel sorry for her.
So she took this off her arm to have a penis?
Mm-hmm.
They took some chunks out too.
Mm-hmm. And now he's having all kinds of medical problems. And
What do you say to parents?
Is having
a parent comes
She.
to and says, my 8-year-old son is telling me he's a girl.
Yeah, great. You're going to have them do an experimental procedure that creates the most suicidal ideation of any other population 7 to 10 years after, transition. And here's what I tell parents. You don't have the right to medically transition your child.
We have no research on long-term hormone use. We will be seeing the first generation of long-term hormone use. And we already know, at least with 10 years of hormones, you're giving yourself cancer.
What's your message to parents who are trying to cope with this?
The first thing is to tell parents that they're not alone. It is our responsibility as a parent to be the frontline defense for our children. And I know with my child, a lot of people will say, was it worth it? Because you now seemingly have lost your child. And I'll say, yeah, but at least I've saved my conscience and my morals and my convictions. And when my child turns 25 and says, Dad, where were you? I'll say, I was there. I was fighting as hard as I could. I was not prepared to let this happen.
That poor dude, too.
Does this really matter is another question. So,
Matters for those who are getting double mastectomies when they're 16.
why should we care if we live in a society where gender is fluid?
Well, I cared because my government decided that I had to call people by the terms that they designated, or I'd be subject to legal penalties. It's like, no, I'm not doing that. I don't care what your reason is. You don't get control of my tongue.
We live in a climate now in which no one seems to care about the safety of women and girls who are going through a very developmentally challenging time in their lives. They may not want to share spaces with their male peers. I would not be surprised in a few years, there will no longer be women's sports. It will literally be men's sports and transgender sports.
The question being asked by the trans person is a legitimate one. How can I be happy? The answer being given by having my body transformed to look like the other gender, by having myself pumped full of hormones, clearly isn't working. And we have to find a better and the more humane way of dealing with individuals who are struggling with gender dysphoria.
I have the utmost compassion for people who suffer from gender dysphoria. It's a nightmare for them and their families. The vast majority, up to 90% of kids, if they go through a normal puberty, they're gonna be okay. They will be at peace with their bodies, and they will have avoided dangerous and experimental medical interventions and surgeries.
Maybe we're up against a battle here, up against a hill that perhaps, we're not gonna necessarily win today, but if we don't pave the way for a win, we'll never get there.
So we're going on this journey.
chicken
Boys
fryer.
can be girls, girls can be boys, men can be women, women can be men. It makes me wonder, what is a woman?
What is a woman? A woman is someone who claims that as their identity.
Your Honor, I object.
It could be many things to many people.
I think the question really brings up the fact that it is pretty relative, right? That if you ask women across race, across identities, across class, across culture, you will get a different answer.
Some of it is, based on biology. Some of it is based on hormones. Some of it is based on what you wear and how you present yourself.
A woman is not anything in particular. There's no one particular thing.
There is not one particular thing.
A woman is someone
Oh.
who says that she is a woman.
Who says that she's what? Can you define the word woman?
Andrew.
Without using
what's
the word
name?
Schultz.
Yeah.
It's
Somebody has a gay
a curious
friend.
question.
They call her
But
back pussy. That's funny.
We've been journeying across the country asking people this question, and almost nobody can answer it.
What is a woman?
What is a woman?
Marry one and find out.
Well, I should go home and ask my wife, I guess.
Yeah.
Crazy bitch. Most of them.
Hey, I've been meaning to ask you something.
Uh-huh.
What is a woman?
An adult human female who needs help opening this.
That's about right.
Yep.
That was good.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was sad that it had to be made.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean,
that's crazy.
I think what's happened when it comes down to the question of why this crap's going on is, even though I'm not super religious, most people throughout my life and throughout history,
bald-headed boy,
they had religion as far as something that is accepting to them. That was like their circle. They had people that accepted them through religion. And now that politicians and the media have taken religion out of everything, they had kids today had to kind of latch on to something that made them feel like they were part of something, that they belong. And this whole gay thing, it started out as, hey, we just want to be treated same because we're gay. We just want to be able to get married. That's it. I never cared. So it really wasn't a problem for me. So I never really gave a crap. If you're gay, you're gay. Don't care. But then it started changing from that into, well, now we want to be able to go in front of your children, and I have 2, and tell them it's okay to be gay. That ain't your job.
Yeah.
That ain't your job. That's my job as a parent. And when they turn 18 and they move out of the house, it's okay for them to figure out whatever they want, but as long as I'm paying the bills, that's how it is. So,
I mean, dude, you got a dick, you're a male.
Yeah, I mean, it's gotten all the way to that point.
You're a woman.
It's gotten to the point where people are confused.
Nothing.
What an XY chromosome is. It's just baffling to me. But it was great. I'm so glad Matt Walsh did this, and I'm glad he did it because of his expressions. He's deadpan. No expression whatsoever when I would be laughing in their face. Some of this stuff, does a chicken cry? I'd bust out laughing. I don't know how he didn't laugh.
Right.
And when he asked that dude,
he's so serious about everything.
The dude was dressed on the sidewalk like a woman, saying, "I'm just a gay man." Well, you're dressed like a woman. So what's up with that? You're a gay man, but you want to look like a woman. And then when he asks you, "What is, how do I identify that?" And I don't know. Well, do you know what a cat is? It's just
right.
What happened to society to where people are this just convoluted? I don't understand.
I don't know, but it's crazy.
But I love the fact that Matt did this, and I love that it was Matt that did this, because I could not have done a better job, because I just could not keep a straight face. It would have been impossible. He did a phenomenal job. I understand why so many people, you know, are watching this thing. I think even people that agree with the whole LGBTQ, all of that, I think a lot of them even watch this and go, yeah, that's kind of, you know, just because you're gay doesn't mean you have to approve of this stuff. You know, just because you're a lesbian doesn't mean you have to approve of allowing children to mutilate their biology away, because you can't mutilate away biology. It is what it is. No matter how much you cut and take drugs, you can't change that. It is what it is. You are what you are. If you're not happy with that, I'm sorry, that sucks.
Yeah, maybe next time.
Yeah, but not this time. So you tell us what you think. Get down in the comments. Let us know what you think about what is a woman, what this whole conversation brings up, and give us your thoughts. I'm sure I will hear some awesome conversations. I'll be called a transphobe and all kind of stuff. But it is
what is a woman? That's a woman.
Yeah. Yep. It is what it is.
It's good to be a woman. I just don't want to be a woman because I'm not a woman.
Right. Right. So, I mean, we got lucky. We were born and we're like, hey, this is what we are. And we're cool with it. Maybe 1 in a million of you out there doesn't feel it. I don't know. But like, share, subscribe.
Regardless how you feel.
Yeah. Regardless how you feel. Identify as someone who likes this video. And identify as someone who shares this video. And until the next time, guys, as always, come at me, bro.